We are amidst a crisis today, people, and we don't even know it. The name of the crisis is Splinternet. Just like the Ottoman Empire was divided way back in 1922, the same thing is happening with the internet and is being divided, broken down, or either being balkanized. The virtual realm, although invisible, is starting to seem more like the political boundaries of physical nations. This is more clearly evident in case of authoritarian regimes like China, with its own internet of sorts, which puts a stop towards information communication in the form of blocking sites like New York Times, or the religious dictators of Iran, which crush networking apps like Telegram in the hopes of constructing a halal internet. The rational nations like ours, it is still understandable that the internet we grew up with had its issues in the form of aggressive capitalism and laxing attitude towards privacy, and that to some extent needs some exercise of democratic power and control. But the bigger issue is where to stop, how to identify how much of the internet needs to be balkanized, and how much of it would be fair that it does not violate the Article 19 of our Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which could not be more clear when it uses the word seek, receive, and impart information and ideas through any media and regardless of frontiers. So today, let's deep dive into the obscure crisis of Splinternet, date back its history, its growth, and its repercussions, which might be the very death of internet as we know it. Splinternet had been lurking in the background all along since the advent of the truly open free internet way back in 1995 in the form of insecurities and power struggles. But its prominence came to light in 2010 when Google publicly disclosed to the world Operation Aurora, which was a series of cyber attacks in 2009 aimed at dozens of companies including Google, Microsoft, McAfee, Adobe, Yahoo, and others by a hacker group based in China who had its ties with the People's Liberation Army, which by the way is the military force of the Chinese nation. So indirectly, it said that it was the Chinese government who orchestrated the cyber attack. The cyber attack was kind of the initial push for the US tech giants to collaborate with their own government in secret, which resulted into the formation of an organization known as PRISM, which was a US National Security Agency surveillance project, or in simple words, it was a spy organization meant for these organizations to share every piece of information recorded on their platforms to be shared with the government as and when asked for. But then in 2013, something happened which totally blew the cover of all these supposed covert collaborations and made the world question if individual privacy even existed at all. Edward Snowden, an American computer intelligence employee who worked at the NSA, leaked extensive internet and phone surveillance records of millions of Americans, which the NSA was tapping and collecting. What Snowden's leak did was that it actually blew the illusion that the internet was free and borderless space ruled by capitalist companies. In fact, the Snowden leaks can be the moment which actually gave birth to Splinternet out in the open and alarmed the Chinese, Russians, Iranians, North Koreans and other nations of the US dominance over internet and the lack of censorship over their own populations. Before going further, first and foremost, it's important for us to understand how does it affect us directly as digital consumers? What is the impact which Splinternet will have on our day-to-day lives? So let's understand with an example. Consider Mr. Khanna, who is an entrepreneur and needs to send emails to his clients outside of his country X. But his mail bounces since his client's country uses servers in a country that was disconnected from the global internet. Now Mr. Khanna decided to share his product quotations via social media sharing app because the business that owns this app does not have a version that compiles with local regulations of nationwide about content sharing. And the worst of these cases is that population of country Y will never be able to discover this entrepreneur's innovative products since country Y is on a splinter network. And its people must pay extra to visit Mr. Khanna's website since these two countries are not on a cordial relations with each other. So in a nutshell, Mr. Khanna lost access to a lucrative and more diverse market owing to the Splinternet and its ramifications. That's Splinternet hurting people's lives and the economies of nations for you in practical terms. Now talking in geopolitical terms. The impact of Splinternet has been astonishing, especially in countries like China. where according to a Harvard study in 2016, the Chinese government fabricates and posts close to 450 million comments on social media annually. This is insane amount of censorship for a country, and more than 100,000 people are employed by both public and private sectors just to carry out this task. But all was not dark for China always. Since the first email sent in China in September 1987 up till 1996, Internet grew without any restrictions and censorships. Post 96 though, China started experimenting and enacting criminalizing laws against national security concerns, and it wasn't until the advent of the Great Firewall, which is their very own internet version, that they started blocking the traffic which enters or exits China. China's censorship has been so intricate that they not only try to block information, they also have a system in place known as the Great Canon, which goes about the internet replacing content which the government believes needs correction. This can be portrayed with the help of the famous example when during the Beijing Olympics, Twitter banned more than 3,000 accounts, which it found was circulating posts promoting Beijing Olympics and spamming eminent journalists who were disclosing the human rights violations against the Chinese players run by the state. Let's talk about TikTok for a bit. Although the app's parent company ByteDance is a Chinese company, but even then you can't download TikTok in China. Instead, ByteDance has developed a similar app specifically for China known as Douyin. Question is why? Why would they develop a Chinese app from fresh for their own country? Well, it seems Douyin has been developed promoting patriotic sentiment and delivering the Chinese government's message, since more than 5,700 Chinese government agencies and Communist Party organizations were active on the platform. And TikTok, on the other hand, being a Chinese app, has been getting attention from regulators in US because they believe that the app has been censoring content that would be displeasing for the authorities in China. People, taking India's example now. When India banned TikTok, it led to the growth of indigenous apps like Moj, Josh and Raposo, which were able to raise funds riding on the back of its growth. But on the flip side, we forget to see the dark side of the moon, that this would create the same issue for our apps when they try to enter foreign soil, since they will have to deal with the consequences of our Splinternet moves then. Just like China, Russia too likes to advocate a state-centric model of governance over the internet. A perfect example to demonstrate this is the Sovereign Internet Law, passed by Vladimir Putin in 2019, which although proclaimed its objective as protection of Russian segments of the internet from threats to its security, integrity and sustainability, but in simpler terms, it was just another Splinternet move to expand the censorship and its state's control over the internet. Guys, Russia has been in pursuit of internet separation like China for years, for which the great example is their efforts to duplicate internet under the name RUNET, which failed by the way. But the Ukraine war and the overwhelming sanctions that followed essentially made this splintering task easier for Russia, since all the big tech giants have either pulled out of the country or Moscow has banned them. And they have been forced to make their own payment systems and communication protocols, thus establishing Splinternet in its full entirety. A fun fact, Google's co-founder Sergey Brin is born in Moscow, and how ironic is that a native Muscovite would co-found a company which is now keeping Russia's media away from the internet. People, let's introduce ourselves to a new word today, autarky. This word means an economic system which is self-sufficient and has limited trade with other economies. The easiest way to remember this word, whenever you hear the word North Korea, this guy should pop in your head, which will instantly refresh your memory of the word. Okay, so why are we talking about autarky? Well, it seems that nations of our world believe that the future isn't about reaching out and interacting with each other, rather it's autarky. The splintering of the internet is a clear-cut example of retreat from globalization, and what they do not realize is that this is a process so dark in its nature that once done, it cannot be reversed. So stop the splinternet and save the internet. That's all for today, folks. If you like the content, do hit the like button below and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I'll see you all in the next episode. Mindfulness signing off.